We are live on the earth plane in physical bodies. My name is Matthew, and this is episode 3 of a very important special project we're calling Cosmic Redemption, the Corey Goode Accountability Project. And over the past couple days, we have been privileged to receive some very, very important testimony about an ongoing investigation into the individual we all know, Mr. Corey Goode of the Sphere Being Alliance. And as many of you know by now, if you found this video, you will be very much aware of what we call the cult of personality surrounding Mr. Corey Goode. And I want to start out today by saying the whole aim of this series is not to debunk the secret space program. It is not to debunk the testimony of Mr. Corey Goode. It is not to, on any level, destroy any of that timeline or that story or that information. What we are talking about here today, ladies and gentlemen, is truth, the frequency of truth, and what has essentially become a predatory force within the disclosure and ascension community. And so in August of 2019, I was brought into what is essentially the Forward Action Committee as a human intermediary working as basically an intelligence contractor on behalf of an astral intelligence agency, one of the actual galactic councils that is assisting with the disclosure process and the ascension process for those of us in this soul group. And so we have been given direct authorization by Spirit to engage and begin to tell the true story of what is essentially, for the records, will be known as a historical example of an energy hijack, and the manner by which something can start out as very authentic, very clean, very pure for a real purpose with a real mission, but through some deal, some darkness, some hijacking along the way becomes the literal opposite. They went from service to others to service to self. And we've been given direct authorization to begin to tell this story so people can begin to make up their mind. And so what we've done over the past couple of days is we've had some very important testimony from some of the closest individuals to Mr. Corey Goode over the past few years, people that have been involved with him on a business level, on a personal level. And now we're coming to the stage of the game in which we're getting an entirely different viewpoint. Both of those from an individual known as Mr. Leon Kennedy. And so we are very, very honored to have Mr. Leon Kennedy here today. But what we're going to be doing, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to be taking a very interesting ride. We got a lot of twists and turns to go down. We have a lot of years of history here. And so Leon has a written statement. We have quite a batch of information that I think everybody in this soul group needs to be made aware of when we talk about the phenomenon of fake light, of spiritual charlatans, of the manner by which individuals' money, their energy, their emotions can be hijacked, utterly siphoned and used for something that in the beginning looked very pure. But now we're finding out as we come to this great conjunction, the great revealing at this stage in 2020, that it is essentially a very great predatory darkness. And so at the risk of going on way too long, we're just going to get started. Leon, I really appreciate you being here. I know this has been a wild road for you. I know there's all kinds of energy, all kinds of legalities, all kinds of experiences wrapped up in this. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. Thanks for being a part of this project. What would you like our community to know?
Well, thank you, Matthew. And thank you for the courageous work that you're setting out to do. I want to explain to the people that because there are so many specific facts and dates and layers to this, to stay precise, I will mostly read from one of my statements, and then you and I can go back and forth at certain points and I'll answer your questions or listen to your comments. So for those of you in the community, by now tens of thousands of you through social media have heard that I am being sued by Corey Goode. But I must say, not just sued, but an assorted, sensationalized grab bag of anything that he and his lying attorneys could think of to say. These are slanderous, career-ending, character assassination type accusations without presenting one shred of truth to back up anything that he has accused me of. There was never any embezzlement. There was never any lack of transparency or business damage caused by me. I have been transparent and followed through with all requests. Watch this, including sending Corey's own personal CPA all records of accounting immediately after Corey's request and ample documentation to support all of my claims and prove false the many blatant lies and accusations from Corey and his attorney will be presented by me today. I must say that his attorneys will write out any lie that he instructs them to submit, once again, without one shred of truth. I have boxes and folders full of documentation. So since Corey claims to be this hero, this defender of the light, then let's shine some light now for this entire community to view. Right now on the air, I challenge the Corey Goode to act like a man, not hide behind his attorneys, but face me, Corey, on camera with someone mutually chosen to act as a moderator, and then let's go down each accusation. And I say to this community, I will surgically cut through every falsity with our documented facts, emails, time codes, calendars, and eyewitnesses. So Matthew, right here, do you have any questions?
Well, actually, you know what? From the very start, I will say no questions yet, Leon, but I do have some comments. First of all, I really appreciate the specificity. I appreciate the wealth of information. I appreciate the intense amount of documentation, which for the record hasn't been shared, which will be made available after this video. And so we come armed today, not only with the documentation, not only with the history, not only with the facts from previous associates and previous, individuals that have been close to Mr. Goode, but now we come with an entirely different frequency. And this is the frequency of truth, the armor of God. And so, Leon, I want you to go ahead with your statement, whatever you feel is important.
Before we go any further, it's important that I explain to those of you listening today and later reading my statement, that I explain my heart set and my mindset, which is the average life expectancy for an African-American male is 75 and a half years old. I just turned 72 years old this year. So according to statistics, I only have 3.5 years left. Now this scares my wife when I say that.
I think you got a lot more, my friend, don't worry.
Prayerfully, I plan on living beyond that life expectancy. But here's what I want to say to the community though. It is a sobering fact that when you reach a certain age, you hear about your contemporaries in business and associates or classmates leaving this planet on a weekly basis. You get that type of news. And so, Matthew, it becomes very sobering. And your mindset becomes quite different than someone in their 30s or 40s or even in your 50s. So therefore, if you have any wisdom at all, you pay more attention to make sure that you've learned or at least are attempting to learn your life lessons. You're grappling with questions like, why am I here at this particular time? And what did I come back to do? And you're trying to discover and then live and work within your spiritual destiny. And most of you are trying to create good karma. Certainly not bad. Therefore, everything that I do or don't do within my total life, including business practices, has to be done within my spiritual integrity. No amount of money, no matter how many millions of dollars, no particular deal, no achievement is worth me squandering my spiritual integrity. And therefore, I'm not segmented. And what do you mean by that, Leon? I mean that some people, they say they're spiritual, but when it comes to business, they'll gouge people, they'll cheat people, they'll stab people in the back. And then when they're challenged, they say, oh, no, that's just business. No. It's not. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that goes in your business life too. So it is with this mindset and heart set that I state to Corey Goode that I don't have the time and I don't have the patience to put up with your blatant lies and your actions and your nonsense, and I'm tired of it. And I am not content to go through the court system and have this thing play out 1.5 years as it takes to finally get to court. I am eager for this to be tried in the court of public opinion. I say, let this community be the courtroom. And those of you in this community, you be the judge. And I am certainly not opposed to having a chosen panel of trusted leaders in this community brought in to act as arbitrators for these disputes. And also, if we're truth seekers, if we're seekers of light, then why would we want to go outside to the outside court system to have them take care of and make opinions on what takes place in this community? Should we not judge ourselves? Should we not be accountable to one another? In addition to ministry, because I've been in ministry now for the past 20 years, more so as a hybrid of my ministry, part of my spiritual destiny was to come back into this truth-seeking community and use my God-given gifts, those gifts that brought me much success in Hollywood as a writer, producer, director, to use those talents and my 50 years worth of experience to do what I now term transformational films, television series, documentaries, movies, and use my expertise to produce projects that send out uncompromised messages. Having come out of Hollywood, I now am mandated to do what Hollywood will not, and that is to provide continuous content that has a heart, that moves humanity forward, projects that hopefully will bring humanity together with inspirational messages and attitudes while simultaneously sharing the light on truth and disclosure. And a good way to do that, in many instances, a good way to bring about disclosure is through the guise of entertainment. The dark side does that all the time. Hollywood is very good at it. So I say this, that much of Hollywood has their agenda, and it is a dark one, and I have my agenda, and it is an agenda of possessing the airwaves as a force for good. Now, I thought, unfortunately, that this could be accomplished by working with Corey Goode. Yeah. Sadly, I was mistaken.
I think a lot of us were. Sorry to just kind of like jump in right there. I think a lot of us were, and that's what we're discovering here as a soul group, as a community. I want to thank you for that opening statement. I think it is evident immediately, just the wealth of knowledge and experience, especially, and I will say this from the start, when we look at the manner by which individuals seem to just become entangled with Mr. Corey Goode and the Sphere Being Alliance, in each and every situation, it's certainly not by mistake. They seem to demonstrate some level of value and ability and expertise that in many cases is far above others. They'll have a history, they'll have an ability, something that they will be involved in that was of value. It will be needed. And so with that
Corey had a very special team. Some of the most exceptional people that I have ever run into as far as their abilities, as far as their work ethic, and they were completely abused and misused. But we'll get into that in a moment.
No, absolutely.
So to continue, Corey has a decade-long history of bringing about many lawsuits.
We have seen. Yeah, go on.
So it is important for this community and for the subsequent judge to understand that our being sued and then bombarded with smear campaigns, blatant lies, wild accusations, and severe character assassination is nothing new. It is the standard MO of the Corey Goode. There is over a decade-long history that details how Corey has systematically gone through and after anyone who either, watch this, challenged the veracity of his claims, had a story similar to his own, or were perceived to be an obstacle to his agenda. Each person who has dealt with Corey in his professional life, when they got wise to his manipulations, he has attacked them. His previous IT employer, Darling International Incorporated, in May of 2014 was sued by Corey. Of course, with his by now usual trumped up charges, claiming that they caused him emotional damage. Isn't it interesting that in 2019, 5 years later, he's saying we caused him emotional damage. He said Jay Widener and Gaia and so on and so forth have caused him emotional damage. Now, Corey has been mentally damaged for a long, long time. We didn't cause it. Corey's continued accusations and abhorrent behavior finally resulted in that company obtaining a restraining order against Corey Goode. I have documentation to show that. The Gaia TV network spent millions of dollars to promote this then unknown individual who could have been perceived as an incredulous, laughable character. Yet they gave him a home and a platform. Gaia TV spent millions to promote him. And what did Corey do? When he did not receive all that he wanted from them, some have suspected, and it is being investigated, that he criminally devised ways to manipulate and drive down their stock.
I want to pause you right there, Leon, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is something that people in our soul group, in this disclosure community, need to be made aware of. And I think this is something that we need to greatly, greatly emphasize, because as will be shown furthermore in your statement, because I know we got a lot more here to go through, this is something that people need to know. Corey Goode has been the attacking force behind the majority of his lawsuits. And we're going to be showing you guys that, especially when we look at something like Gaia, which I think for a lot of us very, very early on, we saw the manner by which, as soon as there was some sort of a disconnection with the Gaia network, suddenly they were satanic. Suddenly they were Luciferian. And I will tell you, as a person that was a subscriber to that network, we saw the ways in which it rippled through the entire disclosure community. And so when we look back on this, and I'm so sorry to, instantly turn a weird road, I think this is something that people need to be made aware of, because what we're going to see with this person over multiple episodes is it's almost like they have a literal pattern of going in there, gathering all the energy, all the people, all the resources, all the money they can, and then suddenly you're the enemy now. We saw it with networks, we saw it with individuals. And before we go too far down a windy road here, I just want to make that statement. I'm going to let you go ahead and feel free to continue.
Okay. I am sure that Gaia is not perfect, but it did allow a forum for disclosure. And from its inception, there have been many talents and individuals that have hosted shows or appeared on Gaia. Hundreds more have worked for Gaia. Many hundreds more have invested into Gaia. And yet not one out of thousands and thousands have gone after Gaia the way Corey Goode has.
Why is that? How come?
We're going to show a MO here. I must ask, why is Corey always the only one that is right? This so-called champion of justice, and yet everybody else, according to Corey, is wrong and out to get him. His mindset reeks of delusional paranoia. Highly esteemed conferences such as Contact in the Desert, New Living Expo, Conscious Life Expo gave Corey prestigious speaking platforms before multiple thousands. And when Corey was no longer welcome, and why was he no longer welcome? due to lackluster performances and sometimes, watch this, even being intoxicated before speaking. Mm. So what did Corey do? Instead of manning up and accepting responsibility or trying to change, he either tried to sue, defame, or have his followers picket these conferences because he was not involved. Once again, we have documentation and eyewitnesses willing to testify regarding these statements. The following is just a list of victims within the metaphysical community who Corey has tried to sue, send a cease and desist, suppress, attack, silence, or shame within our community. I start off, David Wilcox, Emery Smith, Dr. Stephen Greer, Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan, Bill Ryan, Carrie Cassidy, Teresa Yanaris, Derek Foss, Dark Journalists, Jimmy Church, Elena Kopolnik, Tony Rodriguez, James Ring, Randy Kramer, Og Telix, Dylan Monroe, Duncan O'Finian, Shane, Miles Johnston, Stina, Adrian Youngblood, Roger Richards, and Leon Isaac Kennedy.
Hold on right there, Leon. I'm sorry, because we need to pause on this. We need to understand that all of these people have been sued, harassed, or given some form of legal threat by Mr. Corey Goode, the leader of the so-called sphere being alliance of fifth density sphere beings that came here to our, to our solar system to help everybody get into unity, to help us heal, to help us, go through this ascension thing. And we have this entire list of individuals within this community that, are being somehow labeled as the enemies of disclosure. And yet, the question is, and go ahead, Leon, because I know you got some more to say there, but how can all of these individuals and companies be wrong and Corey be the one that's right?
And that's exactly what I was going to say, Matthew. I put this question out to the community. Can all of these individuals, and many of them I know, and many of them I love, could all these individuals and companies be wrong and at fault, and only the Corey Goode in the right? It is time for Corey's reign of terror to come to an end. Now, there are many websites that speak of Corey's character, and a few of the many key words used are lying, divisiveness, manipulative, plagiarism, egotistic, slander, and many more. I am here to tell you that we are up against a master manipulator. When Corey was no longer part of the Gaia TV show, Corey used cease and desist letters and threats of a lawsuit against David Wilcox and Emery Smith when Corey did not want them to tape their own TV show just because Corey was no longer a part of it. Master manipulator Corey was intimidating and forcing Emery and David to do his will, basically stating, if I'm not on the show, no one's doing the show. Basically stating, if I'm not on this conference, we're picketing the conference, we're going to close down the conference. Basically stating, hey, David Wilcox, I'm not on the conference this year. You shouldn't do it either. And here's why.
I think people need to hear this, Leon, because there's people every day that I see talking about this online. They're blaming Gaia. They're like, Gaia killed Cosmic Disclosure. This was ruined. These guys ruined this show. There's people literally every day going, man, I wish we could still see those episodes. And I think it's important for everyone in the community, for those of you guys that are watching this statement. And yes, it's long. We got a lot of history. We got a lot of data to go through. But when you look back on Cosmic Disclosure and you wonder, why did that show go away? That was an incredible thing. Well, guys, it was because of Corey, because of his ego, because of the issues that he had with other people in the spotlight. I mean, you guys are seeing it here, and I'm sorry to instantly, we just kind of divert off the road there, Leon, but that's something that people need to know.
Go ahead. And also on that same trend of thought, why is it that his main producer, Jay Widener, calls Corey a con man? Why is it that Jay Widener has been battling against Corey for X amount of time? Why is it that other people that had a similar statement to a similar experience to Corey labeled them LARPers, and yet all of them took a lie detector test? The only one that didn't take a lie detector test about their testimony was Corey Goode.
Ooh, pause right there. We need to add emphasis on this. Once again, for those of you guys that watch this, for those of you guys that eagerly anticipate the updates from the Sphere Being Alliance, it's important to note, he wouldn't even take a lie detector test. Interesting.
But the rest of them did. And yet he smeared the rest of them so they couldn't come on the show.
Oh yeah, and you can think of the way that Jason Rice, and I don't even know anything about the guy, but from the very start, he was labeled as this sort of enemy, right? He was like, oh, he is, you know, a total fake. He's a LARPer, whatever they said. And yet we find out years down the road, Corey was the one that actually wouldn't take the lie detector test, let alone the fake one that they added in the scene on the show, which, you know, that was neither here nor there. But I just think that's really important for people to know, for the shield bearer of disclosure and ascension and all the memes that are getting posted and all the mantras. He wouldn't even take a lie detector test to prove his own testimony. And so anyway, just a point of reference, guys. Go ahead.
So I'm here to say that Corey is clearly out of control, and he is marshaling his reign of terror and censorship throughout this community. Matthew, I say to you and others, I am amazed and I am appalled at how many individuals within this community are intimidated and actually afraid of Corey Goode. Now, I find this metaphysical disclosure community to be filled with caring and loving individuals. They have open hearts.
I agree.
And they're just trying to learn and trying to grow. Most don't want to fight, and most don't know how to fight. And to one such as Corey, such a perceived weakness, watch this, invites aggression. Watch this, it's a trait used by all predators. And so it's been a very ripe territory for the Corey Goode to run rabbit with his reign of terror over this community and its individuals. Simultaneously, Corey has imposed his own brand of self-serving Corey censorship over this community, and in particular over anyone who had a different opinion or who would take away some of Corey's spotlight. Corey portrays himself as this comic book hero, this defender of the light against the cabal. But his actions show that he is the antithesis of any hero. Let me start by the way that Corey has treated his own team.
And just hold on there for a moment, because sure. I think this is a part that people need to hear about, because for those of us that sort of watch the goings on within this little soul group here, we all noticed not too long ago the way in which everyone suddenly vanished. They all bounced. As soon as they started working with this guy, something happened behind the scenes. And so anyway, on that vein, Leon, go ahead.
In the midst of this COVID pandemic crisis, this is how I have viewed Corey's actions. I have seen no service to others. Instead, I saw him busy selling his own online course.
Which we know he didn't even write. Sorry, which we know he didn't even write, but go ahead.
He's never written anything that he's done. He's always had a brilliant team around him, and then he pees on that team when they want at least something for what they've done. So I saw him busy selling his own online course. I saw him begging many of you out there for money for his legal defense fund. which is ironic that he'd be begging money, because way back in January of 2020, David Wilcock told me that Corey had already collected over 150,000 from his online teaching course way back in January. As of this, pardon me?
I just think that's important to state. He had already made $150,000 on a course that, you know, it's proven he didn't even write it. He didn't even do it. Go ahead.
As of this taping, Liz Laurie, his former attorney, has stated that Corey has made over $700,000 from his online course. And she should know because she's the one that helped mount it. So I must ask all of you, what was his need to beg all of you for money for his defense fund while he's sitting on a pile of newfound money?
It's a good question. Where did all that money go? I think a lot of people are going to be asking that question after this, Leon.
What is ironic is that Corey is the one manipulating the court systems as he sues companies and individuals, and then he sympathetically portrays himself to you, the community, as the victim to pay for his lawsuits that he initiated. It's sick and it's a sham. So now that we're talking about shams, let's talk about his Light Warrior Legal Fund.
Oh yes, thank you.
When Corey first sued Adrian, Roger, and myself, we asked our legal counsel to simply ask, what does Corey want? Usually I would think that that's the best way to start to get into a settlement, find out what each party wants, find out where they think they've been wronged, and try and find something that's equitable for the highest good of all. So what does Corey want? What does he think is fair?
Good question.
We were then told, watch this, Corey did not want to negotiate or settle. So now we must ask the question, if a person doesn't want something or know what they want, what is the point of a lawsuit?
Ooh, that's a very good
question.
So
now here's the answer, because it has become quite evident that Corey does not want to settle any lawsuit. Why? Because Corey is living off the Light Warrior Legal Defense Fund. That's why.
I believe it. We've seen this time and time again. Go ahead. Sorry.
As some large and then many numerous mid-sized donations come in, and they continue to come in, only a small portion of these funds goes toward actual legal fees. Corey lives off and maintains his enormous spending habits from the balance of the so-called legal defense fund. Question, what is he defending if he's the one initiating all of the lawsuits? There is no cabal that Corey is going after. It's only individuals in this community.
I think that's something that needs to be restated. This has been a big focal point of the information and the experience and the trauma that we've been dealing with from people in this community surrounding the idea that Corey Goode and the Sphere Being Alliance are fighting some war for disclosure, for total disclosure, no less, right? Isn't that the whole phrase? Total disclosure, full disclosure. For those of you guys that really want full disclosure, I think we need to start reaching out a little more, a little more to Mr. Goode and asking him, what are we actually fighting with the Light Warrior Legal Fund? Because at our research at this stage shows that it's actually being used to take on the people that put him where he is today, that enabled, that were part of the process, that created, that wrote content, that put their energy. In some cases, you guys, they quit their jobs literally to join this guy. They quit their jobs to join this guy. And here we are a few years down the road. And not only are we living off this fund, but it's almost like we need to keep this thing going, right? It's almost like, the gift that keeps on giving. As long as I'm fighting the war for disclosure, there's going to be some newly awakening people that are like, oh, go ahead, let's help this guy. And so anyway, before we go down another winding road,
you're really on target here, Matthew. First of all, Corey does not go after disclosure. Corey blocks disclosure, as I will show as we go further down. Corey sits on information and then lets information come out when it monetarily benefits him. And he'll block other truth from coming out if it doesn't benefit him. But let me keep going down this road about this fund, because you hit on something. The truth is, Corey needs to drag out his current lawsuits, watch this, for as long as possible, and even create new lawsuits to continue his public, I need money for my legal funds to fight the cabal Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
It's been a great scam, Corey, but we're shining light upon this Light Warrior Defense Fund, and your day has come to an end.
And we're going to state this again for the record, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you guys that are donating to the Light Warrior Legal Fund to help fight full disclosure, what you're actually donating to is so that this individual can continue to censor, to attack, to malign, and to take on anyone within the disclosure community that either is onto him, does not agree with him, that he owes money to. And so I think that is something that people need to be made aware of. And here is the thing. If that's not true, prove it.
Absolutely.
But anyway, go on, Leon.
Corey has multiple personalities. I am sure that many of you have been tricked as I was. The good Corey comes across as likable, lovable, easygoing, a down-to-earth guy. This is the Corey that sucks you in, as I was. You want to help him. You want to do anything for him. I loved him like a son. But here's a word of caution. There's another very dark personality. Corey has a saying, if you're not with me, you're against me. So anyone or any company that does not fit into his agenda, or if he deems them an obstacle, there is, watch this, a spirit of rage and a spirit of vindictiveness that comes out that totally consumes the dark Corey. He goes into watch this, a military style operation and will do anything, and I emphasize anything, no matter how despicable, to completely destroy that company or individual. And this is easily ascertained as we continue to outline his decade-long history of actions. I see you want have something to say.
I certainly do. I certainly do. Thank you, because this is something that people need to hear. I mean, you said it yourself. If you are not with me, you are against me. And I know we got a lot of Corey Goode followers that are still cleaving very closely to the idea that this guy's fighting on behalf of light. I don't know, you guys. I'm just gonna say it. That's like, yeah, wasn't that Anakin in like like in the Star Wars, like right before he turned into Darth Vader? If you're not with me, you're against me. And they're still buying into this thing, you guys. I mean, do we not see the theatrics and the ridiculousness, behind the scenes? If you're not with me, you're against me. And so I thank you for saying that, Leon, because that is a phrase that has come back to us during this investigation over and over and over again. When we look into, what's really going on with this guy? If you're not with me, you're against me. You're either on my team or you're a literal enemy, and then I will do whatever it takes to crush you. But the version of me that shows up on camera, oh, don't you know, I'm an INFJ. I'm just this, ultra sensitive little teddy bear guy. And the reality is something entirely different. It's a very difficult thing, as a person, that came into this scene really, really buying into and understanding and feeling the energy and the realness behind what was going on. It's an interesting and very, very, it's an enlightening process to come to some of this stuff, Leon. And so, once again, before we go down another crazy road here, I want to let you, like continue with that.
All right, so now we're going to look at some of the spiritual aspect. You judge a tree by its fruit. And so regardless of how dedicated you are to Corey, you can be a Corey Goode devotee if you want. But Corey must be judged not by what he says, not by his persona. He's got to be judged by his actions. The old folks have always said you judge a tree by its fruit. And so when it comes to Corey Goode, we can't go by the public persona that has been so meticulously crafted, built, and branded. We must look at his behavior. And so I say to this community, his behavior is not one of peace or love, much less forgiveness. Corey's behavior is one of win at any cost and everyone else be damned. Those of you that know my backstory, you know that I left Hollywood at the height of a very lucrative and very high profile career. I had the #1 independent film of the year. I was an international box office star. I was on such things as Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous on the covers of hundreds of magazines. I led the life. Academy Awards, Emmys, Grammys, on every A-list party list. But then something very strange happened. God yanked me the other way, and I went into ministry. So as part of my spiritual journey, I am a licensed and ordained minister. And throughout the years, I have spent thousands of hours in prayer and fasting and studying, trying to grow and trying to learn. I have traveled the world to meet and study with those that are called masters or highly enlightened. Along the way, I have met and talked with and spent time with Mother Teresa and the Dalai Lama and the Reverend Billy Graham. So you see, there are many different levels here. I've been to Egypt 3 times, and I have prayed and meditated inside some of the sacred locations. I have visited Stonehenge and Sedona and many other powerful vortex energy centers. And also I have spent hundreds of hours to sit and learn from those who knew the strategic art of prayer and spiritual warfare. And through these years of intense prayer and study and training, I was gifted with a very strong deliverance ministry. And because of this gift, I've been flown into venues throughout the country and throughout the world to minister what is called deliverance. Mm-hmm. If it's a Catholic church, they call it an exorcism. If it's Pentecostal church, they simply call it deliverance, which is sometimes a shifting of energy. Other times it's the removal of dark forces, dark energy. And I could say without exaggeration that almost on a daily basis, this ministry is used to help someone, whether it be by phone or in person. At times it's to remove energies, at other times it's milder, it's life coaching or drawing from decades of experiences to help others through their hurdles. I have been a member of the Police Clergy Committee. This committee was brought into effect, Matthew, after the Los Angeles Rodney King riots. This committee is a much needed bridge between the community, mainly the Black community, and what they considered injustices by the police department. And so on a monthly basis, we would get with the police chiefs in different precincts and go over these injustices and these infractions. And with our society's current unrest, this interaction will only be intensified. So I say all this to say I take this spiritual journey very seriously. And I've been looked upon as an authority in deliverance and spiritual warfare. I have been anointed and trained to have specific spiritual insights. And I've gone into this much detail because I don't take lightly or glibly my next statement.
Thank you.
The Holy Book teaches on the discerning of spirits. We are taught to discern and judge the spirits, influencing others and ourselves, lest we be deceived. So when it comes to one like a Corey Goode, can't go by what he says. That is perception. You can't even go about how you feel about him, because emotions can be confusing and misleading. What do you mean, Leon? I said emotions can be confusing and misleading. Ever been in love with the wrong person? Enough said.
Right.
So therefore, Corey must be viewed and judged by how he has treated other people. Corey states that he has received multiple visits from angelic beings. And I'm going to tell you something from the core of my heart. From my spiritual perspective, I can tell you that it is impossible to be visited by angelic beings and then turn around and behave the way that Corey has mistreated so many other individuals.
Agreed.
Usually, when you are in the presence of a holy man or a holy woman, much less a holy entity, much less an encounter, one becomes humbled. You become convicted. You become convicted to try and be better. You become convicted to forgive someone that you couldn't forgive. You become convicted to love more intensely. You see, conviction is one of Spirit's ways of cleansing one. Conviction builds character, and it takes true character to carry the gift. The fruit of the Spirit is peace, and it's love, and it's joy, and it's a kind heart. And to this community, I say, I don't see any of this in the Corey Goode's behavior.
Thank you.
To the contrary, from a spiritual perspective, and it hurts me to say this, but it is true. Corey Goode is riddled in witchcraft. Corey Goode operates through witchcraft. He's operating as a warlock. His constant MO is to intimidate and manipulate and dominate, and that is witchcraft. And this is not just my analysis. Any trained spiritual practitioner of the light would attest that Corey's methods are taught by the dark side as a tool of sorcery and witchcraft for those wishing to control and manipulate and impose their will on the will of others. Corey is a spiritual fraud. And even though he recites it because he knows that will pull you in, his behavior is the antithesis of the law of one. Since his arrival, he has brought a nasty, combative, evil energy into this community. Corey has done things to companies and conferences and individuals in this community that a normal person's thinking could not even conjure up. Corey's mind is not normal. His spirit is not normal.
Give us an example of that. Give us an example of that, Leon. And I'm so sorry to cut in here, but
okay,
we got some really good and some really big claims here, which I think is a very powerful thing. I think there's some other details though that you can add to this, because a lot of people are going to watch this video, as you know, and they're going to be like, wow, man, this guy's got some, we got some big claims and we've got some big energy here. What else can you give us? How does Corey attack his people? In what ways does he use this dark energy? Go ahead.
I'm going to dive deep for you.
Thank you.
Throughout this whole course. But first of all, let's say this. In Roger's letter, he disclosed that Corey speaks about opping individuals.
Opping.
Yes,
Thank
getting
you.
into their minds, dreams, or even causing negative things to happen to individuals that cross him. And
Hold on, Leon. Pause right there. I need you to read that and for everyone watching, you guys, this is really important information for people in this like community that are giving money to Corey Goode, that are buying into the Light Warrior Legal Fund, that are thinking, he's, about to take everybody down into the inner earth and the Anshar bus. I need you to read that again, Leon. Go ahead.
Okay, say the word, you know it.
Opping. What is opping, Corey?
Okay. You want me to read it again?
Yeah, I want you to read the whole thing again. We're here live on camera. Go for it.
He disclosed that Corey speaks about opping individuals, getting into their minds, their dreams, or even causing negative things to happen to the individuals that cross him. This explains why so many have a genuine fear of this Corey Goode. Corey claims that these were tactics taught to him in the secret space program. Corey deploys psychological warfare techniques to gain control over individuals through harassment and my previous mention of his other maneuvers to dominate. Corey has also utilized the whispers of his prowess in these areas to bully and psychologically strong-arm his will through this community of love. Now, Corey and others might call it opping. I call it by its ancient name, witchcraft. It's sorcery, it's dark magic, and whoever taught it to Corey certainly was not working with the light. And any spiritual teacher will back me up. Corey is continuously and purposely dominating this community through fear and harassment. Corey has knowingly violated major spiritual laws and principles. And it is time for him to go. It is time for him to be shut down. So how will you shut him down? And the hearts of the people turned against him. You need to shun him. You need to have nothing to do with him, much less support him. So I'll let you ask any questions or make your comments.
Well, yeah. Thank you. I think that this is a tremendous amount of information for people in this soul group to be made aware of what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. And I know there's a lot of content, there's a lot of information, but what we're discovering here as we dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the Sphere Being Alliance, into Mr. Corey Goode, over and over and over again, we hear about tactics, we hear about, opping, which is a very interesting term. For those of you guys that are familiar with spiritual warfare or energetic manipulation, opping is actually a term that is primarily used by agencies or individuals that have been subjected to some form of governmental or organized types of energy warfare. And so when you hear people use those words and those statements, these are usually people that have been deliberately trained on some level to actually create an emotion within the body. I myself have experienced that. And so for those of us out there that know about this stuff, we're going to know how very, very real it is. And so I'm going to be honest with you, Leon. I think we're going to be doing another episode on this. We're going to be talking more about this. So I'm going to save all the questions, and we're going to let you continue to send the message and to just go on with whatever you need to stay here. So go for it.
All right, thank you. Corey has routinely termed those he opposes cabal agents. But this might be a reverse tactic. Perhaps he's the cabal agent. For those of you that don't believe in spirituality or dark energy, I'll break it down for you in metaphysical terms. Corey's behavior exhibits the classic techniques of one trained by the cabal. I would not be surprised if we all later discovered that he was a dark agent dropped into this community to confuse it and disrupt it and to cause division. If you connect the dots, it has certainly been another part of his MO since his arrival into this community.
And also, if you look at all the people that he's suing, all of the people in prominent places within disclosure, whether it be networks, whether it be individuals, whether it be cease and desist orders, it's almost like this guy has a hit out right now on all of these people, whether or not you sort of, agree with their, their agenda, whether or not you agree with their info. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, most of them I don't. Like when you actually start looking at the energy, you're going to realize, everyone's got their own issue in their own way. But anyway, at the risk of, going too far down the winding road, Leon, go ahead, continue.
So some of you may be asking, well, Leon, if Corey is so terrible, why'd you hang in there for 1.5 years with him?
And they certainly will. They'll certainly be asking.
Fair question.
Right.
Yeah. And I answer this way. His multiple personalities originally fooled me. I kept thinking through prayer and through trying to use teaching moments that the light would win. It took time for me to finally determine that each time that Corey was given a choice, he always chose the dark way. Corey is very diabolical. He's like a magician. You get a lot of different looks that thwart your perception. Initially, I'm not too proud to say, I let my heart get in the way. I loved him like a son. I loved David Wilcock like a son. I loved Roger Richards like a son. It was like 3 sons in this community. Yes, there was sibling rivalry, but I always tried to make them treat each other with respect and treat each other fairly. And then there was the great potential through the works that we could have all accomplished together. We were working on the 20 and Back TV series and the 20 and Back movie. And that would have brought a lot of disclosure, which later Corey blocked, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But finally, I had to quit making excuses for Corey. And so, Matthew, when I zeroed in spiritually, and when I focused only on how he treated others, then it became clear. And then I saw the witchcraft. And I saw more than witchcraft. I saw vindictiveness. I saw a mean spirit. I saw evil. And I'm going to go into detail on how he treated certain individuals.
Please do.
Initially, since the announcement of his lawsuit, scores of other individuals have brought me many, many documents and a history of Corey's dark deeds and deceptions perpetuated upon others. And as the information mounted, I became more and more horrified by these atrocities that Corey had perpetuated upon so many others. And it became apparent that I was being called to defend and fight for not just the 3 of us, but for many others in this community. So let's do a deep dive now into how Corey treated some of these individuals. During this COVID crisis, Corey has sued the very people that tried to help him and once upon a time protected him. No one from his original team has remained with Corey. Aside from those of us that he sued, the rest of the team has simply resigned.
And just pause right there. I'm sorry to interrupt you once again. This is something that people need to hear because, we've been going at this for a while. There's a lot of information here. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, as we get to this stage of the story, you need to ask yourself, why did the leader of disclosure, why did his entire team quit? Why did they all leave? Why are all these people in disclosure? We got networks, we got people, we got celebrities, we got the individuals that put together his content, we got the people that wrote his courses, you know, we got, it is ridiculous. And yet they're all wrong. The entire team, right, Leon? Somehow the entire team is wrong, but Corey Goode is right.
Oh, he's always the only one in the whole world, right, according to him. That's right. So I was just about to echo that, Matthew. Once again, can the entire team be wrong? Can only the Corey Goode be in the right? So I think at this point, it's important for me to mention that throughout the year 2019, I was Corey's #1 go-to person. And then when I left, he switched to Liz Laurie. It was my feeling, and at this point, Roger and he was going to go separate ways. And it was my feeling that certainly Roger deserved something. Roger had been with him for close to 4 years. Roger had built the Corey Goode brand. Roger is a working machine. I've never seen anyone work as hard and get as much work done as fast as Roger. He does the work of about 5 brilliant people. And I thought he really deserved some percentage or some buyout for all the years of work that he had put in. Now, it's important for me to say, I could have continued to be Corey's #1. However, because of my spiritual integrity, I could not go along with many of Corey's activities or directives that are now being implemented by his attorneys. Corey is, I have it's part of my documentation where he sent me an email saying, Leon, I'm the one with the $1 billion IP. You need to be on my side.
I'm the one with the $1 billion IP. Sorry, I'm like, wow, okay. And
I have a direct email from him to me. I'm the one with the $1 billion IP. You should be on my side, not the side of Roger, not the side of Adrian. Well, for those of you listening, I don't pick sides. I always tried to be the voice of reason. I always tried to be the compass of which way to go and what was right for the highest good of all. I made to Corey several recommendations, pleading with him. Corey, there does not have to always be a war. You don't always have to be in combat, much less lawsuits. I made suggestions toward what would be a fair business divorce for all the parties involved. Once again, like I said, every time I've given him a choice, he picked the dark. To the contrary, I found Corey not to be fair, but to be vindictive and arrogantly unfair in his demands with Adrian and Roger. Furthermore, Corey and his team of attorneys never came to the table with a good faith offer to Roger regarding a resolution of their business projects. I was a firsthand witness to Corey's dark side, plotting to totally destroy Roger and plotting to drive Roger to a complete mental, spiritual, and financial ruin. A perfect example of this, you wanted examples, Matthew, of his behavior. A perfect example of this is the fact that within a 30-day period, Roger Richards experienced a horrific double tragedy: the discovery of the death of his brother, then followed by the death of his father, all within a 30-day period of time. How did Corey, his former business partner, and this so-called conveyor of sacred messages respond? Not with any compassion, but with a let's push Roger totally off the cliff move, by then trying to seize and withhold funds that Roger desperately needed and had been waiting to receive for over 3 months and that were legally due to Roger. In my lawsuit, I depict emails documenting how Roger under stress was rushed to the hospital with stroke symptoms, nausea, heart palpitations, and all the other prime symptoms of a stroke or heart attack, all purposely triggered by Corey Goode. This man.
So hold on, Leon. So are you saying that Corey Goode, through some sort of witchcraft or some sort of energy manipulation or even just emotional implantation of energy, intentionally drove Roger into the hospital, intentionally damaged him, intentionally tried to push him off the cliff?